Hi, I'm Ian Astbury, and I am on A-Sides with John Chattman. I don't bother with comparisons and evolutions. I mean, if you spend your life constantly objectifying yourself and analyzing, it's like you need a science laboratory to do that. I mean, just getting through a day is getting through a day is enough work. Just being in the present moment is enough. Keep all those molecules together. I'm not one of those dudes. I'm not the Encyclopedia Britannica dude. Deeply ordered chaos. Let's start with the title. The title came from a phrase coined by Francis Bacon, Irish, English. People think he's English. He was actually born in Ireland. Painter, very famous painter. He said of his process, "I believe in deeply ordered chaos," which, for me, is almost has a Buddhist vibrational quality about it. Somebody who's very aware of the subtext of the mystery of life, which I'm fascinated by. What's below the surface fascinates me more. So the idea that we live in deeply ordered chaos, this time of media, likes, like me, existential need for liking, defining yourself by 90% of the culture define themselves by other people's opinions. This is like heady philosophical stuff. But within that, I wanted to take, the events of Charlie Hebdo, the assault on the Charlie Hebdo offices. I think it was January 7th, 2015. I observed that. I watched it on the media like everybody else, C-SPAN. I was watching like 3 or 4 different channels. I was watching Al Jazeera. I was watching C-SPAN, I was watching CNN, I was watching the BBC, I was watching all these different news services as it was unfolding in real time. And it was so shocking to see that happen in the streets of Paris. That just kind of like, all of a sudden, everything, your normal day is stripped away, and you're in the middle of a violent conflict. That really struck me as normal programming had been interrupted, this disruption in our culture and this disruptive event. So this idea of deeply ordered chaos. And then further themes start to evolve, talking about, Western imperialism, the rape of Africa, the rape of the continents, subcontinents for industrial, etc., etc. People know where I'm going with this conversation. Anyway, we've all reached a point where we've kind of hit this glass ceiling now, whereby we're all kind of looking around each other and going like, who's going to lead us out of this? Where's the patriarchs and the matriarchs? How's going to make sense of this? When the billionaires are building rockets to leave the planet, when mining companies from Luxembourg are mining asteroids for deep space travel, what does that say about the rest of us that are getting our food sources out of oceans that are full of uranium, mercury, etc., etc., etc.? So, hence, deeply ordered chaos. There is a higher theme, law, whatever, Godhead, the supreme, all be-knowing feminine, divine feminine, and we're all subject to that. We're all part of a much greater thing than, what those the arbitrators of taste and violent fashion and style and, philosophy and ideology would have us believe. There's something greater going on here. Scientists only know about 5% of what's really going on. Scientists at CERN don't even know where the Bosun's particle disappears to. Hence deeply ordered chaos. We're in this perfect, chaotic symmetry, and we're all in this boat together, so we better start rowing in the same direction. And obviously I'm a fan of Terence McKenna, so, all hail the archaic revival. Oh man, it's like climbing a mountain. I've been in the Himalayas. Yeah, it's you go through this personal purging of, how much can you reveal, how vulnerable can you get within your music. We brought a piano into this record as kind of a device to get vulnerable, I mean, we get primal, no problem. Getting primal for the cult is really easy. You know, just when the guitars are at certain frequency and distortion and certain rhythms, and you just get into primal modality, that's kind of a default setting. But to get into a much more like erudite space, a certain bit more finesse and a certain frequency, a certain harmonic, the piano is such an incredible instrument. So bringing that in was a really, really important part. So making an album is quite a task, especially when you've been around for a minute. You've got a lot more experiences to draw from, and there's so much you want to say, but you've got a very kind of small space to say it in. So you've really got to kind of like filter through, and also you want to communicate. So you try and filter out all the distorted information that's, you want to get to the core of things and communicate. I like to communicate in a very visual way. So it's tough making a full album. But I do believe the culture is now being reduced to sound bites and, limited characters and symbols and emojis and tracks that are 37 seconds. I mean, I believe the average attention span for a major, I was reading something about like an outlet like ID Magazine, for example, which are, an incredible institution of culture, arbiters of taste and culture and fashion, etc. The average time spent on the website was 29 seconds. 29 seconds. You got to grab the kids quick. Well, that's beautiful. Whoever said that, thank you. The messianic moment of Coachella. What? Who gets messianic? I mean, Kanye West doesn't get messianic. We got messianic, but it seems like, like anything in this culture, you've got to be, the media, got to have everybody's eyeballs on it, grab them by the throat. I mean, messianic is a pretty heavy tag to drag around for anybody. And we had it thrown at us, and that was kind of shocking in many ways. I don't know, that was really an interesting thing. Coachella was a really special moment. The second Coachella was amazing, when all the media wasn't there, when they're all taken off, usually there for the first week. But we were kind of like, we got shafted at Coachella. They buried us deep in the pack, put us on late, didn't really pay that much attention to us, yet we walked away with that, accolade. It felt amazing. It was really beautiful. But with all respect to Coachella, I don't know what element of altruism it represents. I don't know. I'd like to think that there's some altruism there. I mean, I was originally involved in a festival called Gathering of the Tribes in 1989, 1990 that preceded Lollapalooza by a full year. That was an altruistic festival. It was based upon the fact that the media at that time, especially MTV, was, as we were fast approaching the 21st century, was attempting to define youth cultures and tribes. And, they had certain programming, 120 minutes, Yo MTV Raps, Headbangers Ball, where they'd kind of like compartmentalize music and try and contain youth culture and creative energy and make it palatable for a TV audience that their advertisers would find acceptable. And I found it to be abhorrent. And so therefore I responded. The response was Gathering of the Tribes. I wanted to showcase, because at that time hip hop and rock culture was so much more intertwined. There was almost like non-distinction, like the way they used to be with punk and reggae. We were just all like kids in it together. There was no separation of ethnicity or sexual orientation, or even, it's just the fact that we were young and we all had similar aspirations and goals, and a lot of us had come from similar, whether you came from in a city environment or you came from like a rural environment or suburban environment, whether you're white or black or Chinese, it was indifferent. It didn't matter. There was a certain spirit, zeitgeist, that we're all bound by. So Gathering of Tribes was about, my vision was to put NWA on the same stage as Guns N' Roses. That was my vision. I loved NWA. We used to blast out the PA before all our shows, working with the Def Jam family, being introduced to that very early on. I grew up in Canada in a multicultural society. That was very, very important. So I think the original question was about festivals. Yeah. Are we going to play festivals? Yeah, sure, if we get invited, but we turn down more than we do. And a lot of it's to do with that divisive fact that most festivals are unethical and more about money grabbing, You know, I mean, yeah, touring is our livelihood. Let's make no bones about it. And I have a lot more of a modest lifestyle than most people would assume for an artist that's been around the time I've been around. You know, I wasn't wise with my money as a youth. I was, you know, I thought it was for sharing with your friends, and you know, and spending on useless frivolities. But I mean, I probably gave away more than I kept. Anyway, so but ultimately, you know, music is my livelihood. Touring is my livelihood. But it's like somebody somewhere's worked it out that because record sales are down, they're going to create these super festivals which become black holes of sucking in. You know, they'll move into an urban, as you know, a metropolis, and they'll just suck all the, you know, the economic. They'll mine all the, you know, the economy, the youth economy, suck up every single dollar in that festival. Then they'll move off. It's like a mining corporation, but they're mining culture and young souls. And what do they get in return? They get entertainment from their favorite artists of the day, but ultimately these aren't altruistic events. They're not driven by altruism. They're not driven by the sense that, you know, there's no higher calling to most of these events, except for things like maybe Burning Man. Relationships, people, humans, touching, conversing, sharing, feeling, people communicating honestly, openly, sharing their experiences, sharing, learning from others, moments of intimacy with audiences, with loved ones, you know. That's what I hold most dear. There's no monetary value on it. And the idea that we don't own anything, we don't own any of this. This is, future generations will inherit what we, you know, our actions, out of our actions be cause and effect, and future generations will have to inherit that. And animals as well. So, you know, from that perspective, we have a certain responsibility to future generations and its environment. I mean, if this planet is basically, the purpose is to, you know, sprout the human race so that therefore we can go forth and conquer other planets and like just burn this thing out. Really? Is that it? Is that all there is? Or media worship, or, you know, celebrity worship? Is that what we're really here to do? Or be right? That seems to be another thing. The most important thing is to be right. I am right. Good, you're right. Good for you. How does you being right affect everybody else? Good job. We've got responsibility to future generations. So act accordingly, choose accordingly, speak accordingly. Buddhist precepts, you know, it's in all religions, and if you follow that with a pure heart, instinct, follow your heart. Your heart is the highest authority. The heart, feel your instinct, feel your intuition. Feel if it feels right, do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And be conscious of your actions upon your environment, other humans, animals, and the fact you're leaving something behind. Your actions will leave something behind. So, yeah, by all means, experiment. Be safe, but be inquisitive. Stay. I think the definition of youth is like the body will eventually decay, but you can still be inquisitive. You can still explore. And that's it. Stay inquisitive. I think that's really important to have an inquisitive nature, and don't define yourself, and don't let others define you either. You know, other people's opinions are other people's opinions. In fact, they're none of our business. You know, we observe this constantly, where we're defined by other people's experiences. You know, the attempt to marginalize my brand, me as an individual, what people think we are, where we should be, what lane we should swim in. That's their opinions. You know, being judged by a numeration system. What are we talking about here? We're talking about one lump of coal, or one apple, or one diamond. Is it 7.5 diamonds, or is it 3.5 lumps of coal? What are your credentials? Where do you come from? What are your experiences? What gives you the right to be a judge? Who's judging you? So ultimately, it's down to your individual experience, and yeah, move forth into the void. Black Star, David Robert Jones.